All right, we've got a couple more to let in here.
This is want to get away.
Okay, so we're up to 47. All right, well, welcome everyone. Let me go ahead and spotlight myself here for a minute so you can all see me. Oh, it's not going to allow me to do that. All right, well, I'm not sure who can see me here. My name is Amy. I'm from the Chardon Library. I want to welcome you all today to our Skywatchers program about UFOs in Geauga County. We've been having monthly Skywatchers presentations for just a little over a year now. So if you find this interesting, you want to kind of check us out the first Monday of every month. We have an astronomy related program going on. So tonight we're going to have a presentation by our local Frohring to share with us his experiences and some information that he's gathered. After that, we'll have a question and answer session. With so many of us in here, I may ask people once we get to the question and answer portion to maybe put your initials in the chat so we can make sure we go one at a time. To access that, you're going to hover around the bottom, the same place you went to get to your video and to mute and unmute yourself. I'll remind you about that again when it's time. So I think we've got about everybody we're going to have. So I would like to go ahead and introduce Glen. Thank you, Glen, for joining us and for sharing your experiences and information. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, good to see you all. And I'm going to start this off with probably what you've already seen, that the government is going to release an unclassified whole bunch of sightings. It's basically the U.S. Navy, and these are usually airplane to UFO sightings. This came out, I think, in December, and they're calling it a 180-day countdown, and it's hidden as a committee comment attached to the Annual Intelligence Authorization Act. And it's chaired by Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, wrote the provisions requiring a detailed analysis of unidentified aerial phenomena data and intelligence reporting collected or held by the Office of Navy Intelligence. Be submitted within 180 days to the Congressional Intelligence and Armed Services Committee. Now, as I mentioned, what I would be a little afraid of, these are just repetition of the pilot's comments or their reports, and won't break any new ground like Area 51 or something exciting like that. So anyhow, I'll start out with my solo sighting. This was the year 1954. It was between my freshman and sophomore years in college. And this is in the summer, around 2 in the afternoon. And I have an old Chevy convertible with a top down, and my cousin Donnie riding with me. And we're our homestead there on Munn Road, halfway between Bell and Music. Our place had 2 lakes in front of it. And I turned in the driveway, which went between the 2 lakes. And my cousin said, "Quite St. Glen, what is that?" And I stopped the car, and of the right-hand lake, it was a disc-shaped object. I have to say it was as bright as the sun. And in fact, my other analogy would be when you strike a arc welder, that brilliant light that comes. We stopped the car, and this object, it was perfectly stationary at that time. It was like it was shot out of a slingshot. It just went due west just as fast as could be and disappeared over the horizon in a matter of a few seconds. I saw the same year, I saw another thing I couldn't positively identify. Lights, brilliant blue lights, side by side, up in the sky that made like a turning maneuver. So that could be twin jets or something like that, but kind of odd for something to do that kind of maneuver. This was probably 10 o'clock at night. Now getting into some other local Newberry sightings, the Howard Schwartz, who was the president of Worthington Hardware, lived between on Music Street about a mile and a half west of Monroe, and he saw. There are two types of UFOs. There's the saucer type and the inverted cigar type, which they've split about half and half, which I'll just interject that I think that might indicate that there may be two groups looking at us at the same time. Anyhow, Mr. Schwartz watched as this went northeast, and he said it had a kind of a purple glow to it and a humming sound. And later, this is at the corner of Pekin and Auburn Center Road, George Mealand, who is a local artist and another very reliable person, saw the same thing. So this object had stayed on that course for the whole, it stayed on a straight line. Now, when I mentioned there are two types of UFOs, there's a third. Now, it's sort of a triangular shape that was spotted in England, and they've just recently had pictures of what they did. They made a model to duplicate that. So, anyhow, this happened about 1955. This incident I mentioned, and my theory, as I mentioned in my other presentation at the park, is that in the 50s, we had the Cold War. We had Russia doing nuclear testing. And it's like somebody came down to see if these fools were going to blow themselves up. So moving on, yet in 1950s, in 1957, November 6th, it's about 11:20 p.m. and this gentleman by the name of Olden J. Moore, he was a plasterer, he was returning from work. This is 11 at night. And he's on Route 86 in Montville Township. He sees this object, a glowing object with like a flat saucer shape with a dome and a lot of lighting and everything going on, land in a field. He he then waited for somebody else to come by, one other witness. He didn't want to be alone in this. Nobody showed up. He went and he got his wife, came back, it's gone. So he reported it to the authorities. Civil defense came out and took measurements, and there was all sorts of radiation coming from that spot. And Uh, the next day they had, more government officials out, and he eventually was given a trip to Washington and testified under oath and silence to the government. And while he was there, they gave him a tour of all the sites in Washington. And anyhow, to the spot where it landed happens to be across from where an ex-in-law of mine lives. And she was kind enough to take pictures of the spot. Now, this is 60-some years later. And you can see in the field across 86 a bare spot. There's fall pictures and winter pictures. And they're going to come up on the screen here. No, gotta lower it.
All right, can everyone see the picture?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scroll through them for you.
I can't see it from mine.
There's mouse.
Can you see the spot?
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, right here. Yeah.
And this is a farm, and nothing grows there. The same family is living there that farmed it back when this was, this happened.
Just roll it down there.
There you go. So obviously there's radioactivity or something they've tried to plant there. And you got all the pictures. They're basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
There you are. This is taken in 2020. And this occurred in 1957. So there's a lot of time passed there. That's a good picture of it right there. That's in the fall.
Yeah, that's impressive. That many years later, it's still.
That's 60-some.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something like with the crop circles too, where nothing, even years and years later, even though the foliage has grown up over it, you can still see the pattern that was in the ground many years after.
Yes. Now, I'm going to touch briefly on Area 51, which is still a mystery. Okay. Roswell, New Mexico is where the so-called weather balloon crashed. And a rancher found it, reported it, and it came from an Air Force base. It was called Groom Lake, but this is in Nevada, so it's hundreds of miles away, okay? And Groom Lake was a very highly secreted Air Force base. It's where they were developing the U-2 spy plane, which we used in the 50s to spy on Russia or who else.
It should make it bigger so it fits the screen.
I'm already.
And it stayed secret. And
See it better.
the government changed their tune there a little bit. They said it was a balloon designed to detect Soviet nuclear explosions. In other words, their tests, which I don't know how a balloon in Nevada can check something in Russia, but anyhow, then in 1990 sometime, this individual surfaced. Everyone's supposed to be silent on this. Surfaces and says, oh, they had 2 dead aliens and they did an autopsy on it. And he published a picture, I'm sure many of you have seen, of the 2 little bodies lying side by side with the pear-shaped alien heads and all that. But by coincidence, in 1987, photos shop was developed. So take that and mull it over. Now, here's a recent one. My neighbor, a good friend of ours, he also saw the cigar type UFO. Found this in the Garrettsville newspaper. I'll read it here. This is interesting. Okay, call him Joe. Returning from third shift work near the McGuire property on State Route 82. It says it's near Shankstown's Low Road. He sees lights above the field, sees two what he called aircraft. Stopped, took some photos, he had a flip phone. Two lights seemed to be signaling to each other. A third larger craft appeared between the other two. He says, crowded, he looked. Years later, the same area saw light in the wooded area. Seemed to be looking for something. Thought he spotted figures in the distance. Stopped his truck. It's a very bright light from this and illuminated the inside of his truck. Had to cover his eyes. He managed to take more photos. The parked truck was under pressure of some kind. He showed the photos to friends. Years later, he downloaded these to the computer to get a better look at them. He saw face which grew in subsequent photos, two figures, several unexplained photos here taken at a later date, unexplained. Lights appear around their house whenever he and his wife look at these old photos. Like they're attached to Joe, adopted him. He said the home alarm system was unarmed on 2 occasions. There was a break-in in the fall through a ground floor window, nothing taken. Sticky prints on exterior and window pane, the window was left open. And this gentleman wishes to, remain anonymous. Okay, covered just those I'm familiar with here. One thing I should add, I heard one of the best descriptions ever of this phenomenon and everything. When I attended CASE, I had astronomy, and we were limited to 25 people per class, except once a month. Dr. Nassau, who is a known astronomer in Cleveland, had a class there in an auditorium for us. They held a couple hundred people. And he was an interesting fellow because he talked like this, he grunted, and that made a long 50 minutes sitting there listening to him. So there was a fellow who sat in the front row, wore his ROTC uniform, had real thick glasses, but he loved the sound of his voice. I had other classes with him, and we called him Googles because of his glasses. So Dr. Nassau explained about some new telescopes. He said, these are powerful enough to see the edge of the universe. Googles raises his hands. He says, Dr. Nassau, if we can see to the edge of the universe, we can see beyond, can't we? Young man, there are angels out there and we don't study angels. But And that's sort of where I am. There's mysteries here. Where'd they come from? Another one is, okay, in the world we know, the highest speed is the speed of light, 186,000 miles a second. But they talk about planets in other universes and so on. I mean, logistically, they're out of reach. We've got asteroids. We know Mars is out. If there was life there, it's gone. Venus, we can't see completely because it's clouded over. But you have Saturn and Jupiter have a number of moons each. And there are several, I think, in Saturn that could have been life supported. And the mystery is still there. I'll have to wait till I go to see the angels and someone will tell me. So that's it, folks. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments you'd like to share? You can go ahead and unmute yourself. If we get too many people going at once, we'll put our initials in the chat. But if it's not too bad, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away or share something.
You were telling us about the spot that over the past 63 years refuses to grow anything. You said it's on Route 86.
Route 86, yes.
Okay,
The
where?
farm is owned. Trying to think, my ex-in-law's maiden name. It's Patty Clemson now, but Baker,
Would it
that's the
be
farm.
north of Route 166, south of it, south of 6? Can you give us an idea?
Well, I've been to where this is, but I can't remember it's between what and what. But I think if you were driving along and driving slow enough, you'd eventually see it. It's on the, would be on the west side of the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. The Baker farm, yeah.
All right. Anyone else have anything to share? Or?
I guess I'll share my experience. This was not in Geauga County, though. This was in, I'm going to say, Summit County between 1964 and 65. I was just a little bit of a thing back then. Summertime, outside, I happened to look up and there was a triangular shaped object sitting in the sky, still, not moving, no sound. I'm going to say that the front of it was parallel to the horizon. Shiny metal, I'm going to say it was silver. Then it rotated with the, I'm going to say the front of the ship away from me and was gone. No sound and no exhaust. Just that fast. And that's something that stuck with me.
The same type of ship that was seen in England?
Yes.
Triangular?
Yeah. Triangular, yeah. And what got me was there was no sound and there was no exhaust. And even being as young as I was, I knew that airplanes had exhausts. But there was nothing. And gone just, I mean, almost instantaneously took off.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I said it stuck, things like that stick.
Well, I saw when I was probably back in 64. I was in the backyard of my house. We lived on the farm that's on the corner of Pekin and Auburn. We're north of Pekin, and we had that whole corner all the way back about half a mile of Pekin. And my nephew and I were in the backyard playing badminton. And I happened to see above our woods, because we had woods way in the back, it was this, it kind of like looked like two discs that were like that. And it was just floating above the woods. So my nephew and I and my sister got in the car and took off down Auburn, up Pekin. We wanted to see if we could see it once we got there and get a closer look at it. By the time we got to the area, it was gone. We kind of ran into the woods, see if we could find something, but we didn't see anything. It just disappeared that quickly. And to this day, I have no idea what it was. But it was silent, made absolutely no noise. It was just kind of like floating there.
When was this, Terry?
This was probably, like I said, 64. I was probably around 13 or 14. Yeah. So that was my encounter with one. And now, Glenn, what do you think about the people that say that they've been aboard the ships, that they've been like abducted and probed? And what do you think about those people? Do you think they're legitimate or?
I don't know. I don't.
I mean, they have these people and they put them under hypnosis and everything, and supposedly they tell the story, but some of it sounds pretty far-fetched. Some of it may be for real, but it's kind of hard to judge.
Yeah. A lot of people saw them and didn't say anything.
Right.
Now, the one my cousin and I saw, the only one I told was my mother and father. I didn't go to the newspaper or anything, and we just, they were very common sightings back then. So we just said, that's our sighting, so.
What did your mother have to say about it?
Yeah. I don't know. She probably, she just probably looked at me, and I was with my cousin Donnie, who wasn't terribly reliable, and he helped me make up the story. But
now the thing was above the lake, so it wasn't very big. Is that what you're saying? It was kind of like a small.
Yeah.
But you couldn't tell because of the bright light.
Yes. I don't know if it made any noise because I had the radio so loud in the car at the time, and you don't turn it down, you're just staring at this thing. And it just, like I said, looked like it was on a slingshot. It just accelerated.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother saw one on his farm. Trying to think any others that, but, it was probably a lot more common occurrence there, and that's why I had the theory that they're coming to watch us blow up the earth with their bombs here.
Yeah.
Good job of it right now.
Yeah.
Well, it did seem to get more prevalent after, the development of the atomic bomb. So it could very well be.
Yeah. Well, the corner of Auburn and Pekin was where Howard Schwartz's and George Meelan's went over.
Right.
So maybe, it was you were in the right area. It was on a sky lane or something.
Yeah.
Hi, Glenn. This is Garrick from Thompson, Ohio.
Yeah.
My question is, it seems like your experience was in the 1950s. Have you done any research or Freedom of Information Act interest in the radar installation that was at the Thompson Ledges in the 1940s? I know that there's a foundation of that there that has since been removed. And also, I had an incident in, it was March of last year at the Dark Park in Montville on Kyle Road, that it appeared like it was a drone. It was almost completely silent, that seemed tangible, like a couple 100 feet in the air. And then after a period of time, me and my friend realized that the distance was thousands of feet in the air, and it just kind of moved. It played tricks on the eye. So I was like, is this something that is tricking human perception in my mind? Or is this something that is actually thousands of feet in the air, moving as it appears to me? You know, is it an illusion, or is it something that is really happening? Have you considered that?
But it didn't make a sound.
It made no sound, and that was because when you see a drone even 100 feet in the air, you can hear the wee. You know, those motors are at very high speeds, and you can hear those. When they're at 1,000 feet in the air, it's not. But the lights and the perception that we had from that angle, it seemed very low. But it also, we were at the Dark Park, so we wondered, okay, somebody flying a drone at the Dark Park. And then suddenly, it was gone. And that was really my only experience. And I grew up in Thompson. I moved to Columbus. I'd been all around Ohio, and I'd never seen anything. I used to actually live right outside of Wright Pat Air Force Base, and I've seen a lot of things that, you know, they're trying to cloak and they're trying to disguise, and I still see a B-2 bomber land. It's hard to miss, but I've never seen anything like that. So I don't know. What is your perception on that?
Let's see what this report they're going to come out with. I doubt if they want us to know anything more than what the pilot said. You know, you were talking about illusions. I remember first time I went hunting out west, I sat and looked like a big mountain or hill in the distance. And so I just thought, I wonder how far away that is. So I take out a rangefinder and look at 100 yards. And I was completely fooled, you know, to the distance like you could have been.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, a drone. Drones are generally small and noisy. You know, they've got the 4 little propellers on them, and you said it didn't make a sound. So
yeah, I mean, we were at the Dark Park. It was completely silent, and I thought that was a little. At first, we were like, "No, somebody's flying a drone, and it looks very close." It was the only unidentified flying object experience I've had. And my father was a pilot. I've flown in aircraft. I know what their light signatures should be. This was not like that. So I just wanted to see what your take was on it. Certainly unexplained in my experience.
Okay.
Thanks.
Glen, I
Hi,
have
Glenn. This is Diane from Champion. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was about 7 years old, and I was going into my bedroom, and I always looked out the bedroom window when before I went to bed. And when I went to the window, I saw the round-shaped flying saucer that had landed. And there was red lights all the way around it. And I called my mom, and she came running because I was screaming by that time. And by that time, it was like halfway up the trees. And then from that point, my dad and brother came, and it was clear up in the sky. And for 7 nights in a row, my parents, my brother and I, we watched it. Them going back and forth, back and forth. And my mom, when we went into the house, my mom said to me, Diane, why were you up? And I says, I just went to bed. And she said, no, you went to bed a long time ago. And I said, no, I didn't. I just went in there. So I had time lapse.
Mm.
And then my mom said to my dad, well, what were they doing here? And my dad, he says, I don't know. And then I told him, I said, they're monitoring us. Now, what kid that is in 1965 knows what monitoring meant, you know? And they told me, I told them, I said, they were monitoring us. And I didn't tell my mom this, but when I saw the spaceship, I saw the aliens in the spaceship. And the one guy was like at the controls here. And then there was another one that I saw him when I started screaming, he went like this, and they started going up. And I have other stories, but I'm not gonna tell them yet. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Diane. I just want to make you guys aware, in case you don't know, in the chat, there are some people sharing information so that might interest some of you. So if you hover around at the bottom of your screen and you click on that little chat, it'll open up a side box. So we'll all be able to see those things that people are sharing, just in case anyone's interested in that. And does anyone else have anything to share or to ask Glen this evening?
I would just like to say that I doubt very much whether the government is really going to tell us if they exist or not. For one thing, you know, they say it would cause panic. In some people it may, in some people it may not. But the fact would be that the government would have to admit that there was like a threat that they could do absolutely nothing about. And I don't think the government wants to admit that. So
Yeah.
I really don't see them coming out and saying,
I'm not holding my breath either.
yeah.
I have a question for Glen. In your opinion, you know, there seems to be a lot of sightings in Northeast Ohio. In your opinion, why do you think this is so? I mean, if these are intelligent beings from somewhere else, why do they care about Northeast Ohio?
That's interesting. Why would it be? And this is a silly theory. Terry knows this guy, one of the Martell twins, claims that the things are underneath Punderson Lake, some waterproof thing. So that, to answer that question, but I couldn't speculate. What's that? Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not just northeastern Ohio. It's that's where we see them, our group here. So.
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, there's the question that people ask. You know, why would they care if they have technology well beyond what we have? Why would they care about spying on us, the whole planet?
Again, I couldn't answer that. That's back to the we don't study angels thing there, I guess.
Maybe we're like a zoo.
I have to share on my phone. I have these little news clips. Today, a UFO sighting in LA. Wild pics have flying saucer fans convinced the mothership was seen hovering over California, above LA. And it just came through on my phone. I thought, how ironic is that?
Yeah, what a
They're in
coincidence.
LA too. So
Wow.
I've got a message in the chat here for you, Glenn, from your son. It says, "Hi, Dad. I'm watching without a camera or microphone." I know you can't see the chat, so I wanted to let you know he's watching you.
Okay.
are you studying any of the groups? For instance, I'm a Penn State graduate, and our university is the first university in the country to have a graduate program in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which I am very excited that, my alma mater now has this graduate program. And are you familiar with that or anything? I'm a Penn Stater, I have to admit.
Is that related to SETI, the organization, or?
Well, the college, the university at Penn State has a graduate program devoted to the study of extraterrestrial intelligence.
Oh, okay. I missed the first part. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean,
Interesting.
scientific research on the graduate level. So,
It's
any of
interesting.
you who are into this thing, and my sister and brother-in-law are both Penn State graduates, and they're listening in. It's really exciting that there's enough credibility to this that there's a special program.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Was someone about to share? I didn't mean to cut anybody.
Glenn, this is Jacqueline Samuel. And I heard a lecture many years ago about these events, and apparently in Australia they drew a grid that was connecting all the dots where these sightings had been. And it ended up being a grid that looked like they were mapping part of the Earth. Have you heard about that?
You're not familiar?
No.
Okay. All right.
And
Okay.
I heard another story. I heard another story, also a sighting in the 50s. By someone who went as close as possible to a landed, brightly lit object. And it hurt his eyes so much that it took him a week for his eyes to recover. I heard that story from the son of the person who experienced that.
Interesting. Okay. All right, Glenn, do you have time for another question, or are we, I know you had to make sure you got home.
Do you have another question?
Am I what?
Do you have time for another question?
Yeah, one more.
All right, does anybody have one more question for Glenn?
I don't really have a question, but I'm really disappointed to hear that Arecibo is no longer online, and they don't plan on, rebuilding it. Arecibo down in Puerto Rico.
Arecibo?
Arecibo. the big dish down in Puerto Rico that they were using to
No, I never heard of it.
Oh, you never heard of Arecibo?
No.
Arecibo.
It finally, I guess, just fell apart, and they decided that they're not going to continue it because they were searching for signals from possible life in outer space with it, but it's no longer online.
A thing, I'll speculate, throw another thing you could speculate on. You mentioned that part of the world. What about Atlantis?
Mm.
You know, if they have the technology to fly like they do, then they may have the technology to be submerged. We've never really put a marker where Atlantis was. There's all sorts of...
Right, they don't know where it was,
So,
I think the fact that a lot of the technology that you see in Egypt was also in South America, and supposedly these two civilizations never had any contact, but it seemed that they had the same capability for the technology, so it seems like there was something tying them together, and that may well have been Atlantis.
That is my one remaining question, is where did they come from? The technology, if you've been at it long enough, we'll come up with something similar. But where did these people come from, or aliens, whatever you want to call them? So that's where I'll leave this, okay?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Glenn, for sharing with us.
I enjoyed
I
it.
seen you, Glenn.
Yes.
All right, very good. So, all right, well, thank you very much, Glenn. If anyone would like, we still have a few more minutes left in the program. I know Glenn's got to get going, but if you guys would like to stay and share a little more, you're certainly welcome to. We can continue on for a few more minutes if you'd like. Thank you again, Glenn. It was very nice to join us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Glenn. Thank you, Glenn.
Yep, I will.
Thank you.
Glenn.
Yeah.
And thanks for wearing the mask.
Okay.
Okay, let's see here. All right, so let me take this off of here. Okay. So does anyone else have anything you'd like to share or discuss this evening? I'm glad I had to. All right, I do have something that I found some of you might find interesting. Let me go ahead and see if I can get that up here. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the Drake equation.
Yes.
But I found it very interesting. I won't go through this entire presentation because we only have a few minutes left here, but there was just a few things that I wanted to kind of share with you just because I found it very intriguing. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So I found this presentation. So this is a thought experiment, not a scientific equation. And I found this information on the Night Sky Network. So this is exploring the Drake equation. So the Drake equation is 7 variables that allow us to get an estimate of the probability of intelligent communicating life in our galaxy. And it's important to note, this is just a guess. So the first one is the number of galaxies, and that we're fairly certain there's between 100 and 500 billion stars in the Milky Way. And the next part of the equation is what fraction of stars have at least one planet. So about 10 to 50%. Oops, let me find the third part of this is how many worlds have the right environment, a habitable zone, and water. And right now we think there's possibly 6 watery worlds, and there are orbiters and rovers looking into this. And then how many habitable planets develop life forms? So far, just one that we know of. And then how often does intelligent life, or how often does simple life become intelligent is the next part of this equation. So we're cut several down here. And then how many intelligent civilizations communicate? So with all these factors, and then the last one is the average lifetime of a communicating civilization. So when you go through all of those, you have your pessimistic or optimistic estimates. On the pessimistic side, it says we're alone, but on the optimistic side, there could be millions of civilizations. And that's just something for you all to ponder. So I wanted to introduce us all to the Drake equation just very quickly. In the meantime, we're listening and watching.
Well, I think they have been discovering more planets around stars. So I think
there's more and more all the time.
They pretty much think that every star has some kind of system around it. So I think that variable has increased quite a bit since Drake came up with his.
Yes, yeah. That was a super fast run through, but I always found that intriguing. Just all the factors that go into, and when you consider all those things, what they're finding and what kind of implications that might have. Very, very interesting.
I think the Drake equation is extremely fascinating, but one thing that it lacks is time. So the Earth is only maybe 12 billion years old. But we are in kind of we're just getting the back end of the Milky Way galaxy, even, and I think that's pretty known. So we kind of spun out on this little spiral. We figured that out. So all kinds of other things could have happened. Galaxies or planets and civilizations and life could have rose and fallen, and then their planets exploded in a supernova or have been sucked into a black hole or anything else. So we're kind of out in this like weird spiral of a spiral galaxy. And I think that time is not a very intuitive human concept, because we think of time in spans of life and not in spans of millions or billions or trillions of years. So it's very strange to think that the Drake equation did not include a time factor. We have to line up in time with a civilization that's advanced enough as us that,
very interesting.
It meets there. And I think that's where the Drake equation just like misses the swing of the bat. Like it's very good, but time is something that humans are not very good at over eons, and that's my take on it.
It's hard to wrap your head around, just the vast time periods that take place, and just in astronomy, that how long it takes the planet or a star to develop and go through its life cycles. I've always found that very fascinating. Just huge, immense, vast amounts of time. It's almost incomprehensible, the amount of time.
Another thing, does this Drake, does he take into account that he's basing life on carbon and needing oxygen and water and things like that? There could be life out there that's entirely different. Could be based on silicon. Maybe they breathe nitrogen or carbon dioxide like our trees do. There could be a lot of variables. It isn't life as we know it versus life that's different than us.
Yeah.
There could be an intelligence out there that's much greater than us, and it's not based on anything we know as life.
Yeah, things we're completely unfamiliar with.
Yeah, and also our knowledge that we have acquired since the Drake equation has been written. I mean, nuclear energy and splitting the atom and everything that we as a human society have learned, of course, that's going to cause us to ask more questions.
Yes, most definitely.
Amy, I think there's a question on the chat box there that hasn't been answered.
Oh, did it?
It says, how close was Diane B. to the flying saucer in her backyard?
Oh, I got to scroll back. Okay. Is Diane B still with us to
Yes.
answer? Oh, okay.
Yes. It was about, I'd say maybe about 30 feet away from me.
30.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it was
close.
very, very, very close.
That's close, yeah.
And I lived in allotment area, and the one allotment that was where the flying saucer was, right next door to us, it was empty, and that's where I saw the flying saucer.
Now, was it landing each night?
No, just the one night it landed, and then I called my mom. My mom, my dad, and my brother saw it too.
Mm-hmm. But it continued to come back for several nights.
Yes, up in the sky. It went back and forth.
Mm.
And there were like 13 of them. We would watch them go zip one way and zip the other way. And we counted at least 13 of them during that time.
Did you notice if there were any marks on the land after, you said it landed?
No, I was only 7 years old, so I probably didn't even consider it. Yeah, I wish I would have known now. Yeah.
Diane, did it give off any heat? If you were that close, did you feel any heat?
No, I did not feel any heat, but I was terrified at that time. It scared me to no end, because I was only 7, and you see a flying saucer, you think, why me? Why did I have to see this? Yeah, I was scared.
And where was this?
This was in Champion
Oh,
on Emerson Street.
all right.
Yeah. It was right behind the elementary school that they tore down. Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we just got a few more minutes here. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share, or?
Anybody have any thoughts about crop circles?
About what?
Crop circles?
Crop circle. Well, I don't think that they were formed the way those 2 guys said they formed them in England, the ones that admitted to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they
The
covered it.
disinformation. That was disinformation.
Some of them are very, very complex, and I doubt if 2 guys with a 2x4 and rope
Planks.
create something like that in one night. So yeah, there's something to those, and it may be some kind of a code, a message that they're trying to send.
This sounds kind of crazy, but I think, this is just me, that how when we go sightseeing and there may be a rock or a tree that we carve on to say,
Yes.
so-and-so was here? I tend to think that might be what that is.
Maybe.
Different planets or different clans or just different explorers that, for all we know, they could say Christopher Columbus was here,
Right.
It's a good theory.
Something to chuckle at anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, it could be true. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't see
What
any.
is the title of the course at Kent State for extraterrestrial life? Does anybody know?
I think, Sue, was that you that mentioned the graduate course? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, that's at Penn State. She said it was a graduate course, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not at Kent, not
Myself, there it is.
Right.
Penn State
Penn
in
State.
State College, Pennsylvania, is the first campus to have a graduate program in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So, I mean, there's got to be some credibility with all this if there is a graduate program studying this.
Yes, yeah, the
I
study.
don't know about Kent State, but
Yeah, just the fact that there's a graduate level course on that is very intriguing.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us, and I'm glad you came, and keep an eye on our website for future astronomy programs, first Monday of every month, and we'll be happy to have you all back.
I'd like to also,
Thank you.
I'd like,
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming
Have a
too.
good evening.
And
Thank you.
I just wanted to let you know too, I tape some of these classes, and we have our own YouTube channel, Geauga Sky Watchers. And so I am taping the class tonight if anybody wants to watch it again. And I've taped quite a few of not all of our past classes, but quite a few of them. So you're welcome to pull those up and take a look at them again if you'd like to.
Where can we find those?
Geauga Sky Watchers is our channel on YouTube.
Thank you.
Yep, and our next coming up class is on March 1st, and it's on, the topic is whether or not.
Whether or not, yes.
Speaker is Jan Glove. And for any of you who've listened to Jan before, she's very interesting. She researches her topics very well. Very entertaining speaker. That's coming up for our next meeting. And then on April 4th, we have International Women's Air and Space Museum, which is right here in Cleveland, Ohio. And our speaker is Heather Alexander, the executive director. And the May 3rd meeting is Ancient Astronomy. And the speaker is Becky Parkin from the Lake Metro Parks Naturalist. So we've got some good ones coming up, so I hope you all join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
I know.
Heidi,
Yeah.
who did you say Becky Parkin was?
She's a naturalist for the Lake Metro Parks.
And when is she going to be?
She's on May 3rd at 6:30, and she kind of specializes in astronomy. So she
Astronomy?
teaches. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent program, by the way.
Thank you very
Glad
much.
you
Thank you for
enjoyed.
joining us. Folks, have a great evening.
You too, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.